Okay, thank you very much. Well, once again, greetings to everyone here. Glad that you're here in this meeting. I really enjoyed the singing with the children. That was a splendid time. I think they all were very excited. Good songs and a very nice song leader. I think he's left the room now, but he did a great job. Now, let's continue to talk about missions. Obviously, that's my job, so to speak, is a missionary. I wasn't always a missionary. My training in life was mathematics. I was a professional mathematician. I have a PhD in mathematics, and I used to teach at a university in America up in Michigan, and I also worked at a research center. So I've had different jobs in mathematics, but the Lord got a hold of my heart some years back, and well, just converted us and then led us into world missions. And a typical question that is asked, in fact, it was just asked to me earlier today during the break, maybe 10 minutes ago, is yeah, you've been in Albania, communistic stronghold of Albania, and you're still there. And you've been in for years into North Korea, or more formally, it's known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the DPRK. How in the world did you get to these places? Now, that's a good question. That's an honest question. And of course, I never would have dreamt before. Nancy and I were both raised in Ohio, and growing up, we never dreamed of being in places like this. We were not saved. But once the Lord saved us, began to work in our lives, and we ended up in these two very interesting places. I suppose you could say the reason for this is because of the authority of Jesus. I quoted these verses earlier today, and we, again, as I mentioned, we cannot just consider these verses as an option. These are commands from the Lord. All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of the nation. Go into all the world and preach the gospel. It's commanded. And so we have to take these things seriously. And after we were saved, we began to think about what God would want for our lives. So with the passage of time, Nancy and I heard this call and obeyed it. Now, I can't say it was easy decisions to make at times. I'll talk about that. But we're just ordinary people. But yet, God had put that so deep in our hearts that we just had to trust Him. Had to trust Him for many things, including our future. The call of Albania happened in 1993. That time, I was a university professor of mathematics. I was about 40 years old. You might say at the pinnacle of my professional career. And God showed us very clearly that He wanted us to go to Albania. And that's through a combination of the scriptures speaking to our hearts, circumstances, the country opened up at that time, and, counsel from older brothers and sisters. Just everything came together, and it was very clear that we should go to Albania. It's a very interesting country. For 500 years, it was ruled by the Ottoman Empire, which meant it was under the influence of Islam. And probably 65% of people today will say they're Muslims just because of the Ottoman influence. Eventually, they left about World War I time. But then after World War II, it became the worst of all the communistic regimes. It was a brutal nation. They thought Russia was lukewarm in their communism. I remember growing up, we thought Russia was the worst of all the communistic regimes. Better red than dead, dead than red, we used to say. But Albania was far worse. They thought China had not followed true Marxism. And actually, it's a true statement. China is very, very non-communistic, although they still have those elements there. 1967, they officially declared the country, the state, to be atheistic. No other country has ever done that, including North Korea. In North Korean's constitution, there's still, so to speak, religious liberty. It's a lie, but it's written there. Albania said, no, we are atheistic, and there's no religion. It's the opium of the people. There were no non-believers. When we first went there in 1993, there were no non-believers existing at that time. And there was no underground church during the communistic regime, which lasted about 50 years. Nothing. So it was, walking into a country that had just fallen from communism, void of God. In some ways, it was a missionary's dream because you didn't have to go in there and fight off any, preconceived ideas of religion. They were all blank checks. I must say this. The night, and you know about commendation and everything, the night that we went before our assembly and shared with everybody, Nancy and I, came up before the assembly, and I just shared with everybody just how God was leading us, and, it was very clear to everybody. I was one of the elders there at that time, and everybody, was convinced that God was leading us to Albania, and they came up and laid hands on us and prayed for us and commended us to the grace of God. And then our plan was to go out, after a few months after I finished up my academic semester. But that night, Nancy, when we came up, it was obvious Nancy was quite pregnant, about 8 months pregnant with Joel. And that night, as we were going home, we were all excited, thinking, we're going to go to, Albania, things like that. We're all excited. But that night, he was born. And we didn't know that he had Down syndrome. We didn't do any tests, anything like that before him. And to our surprise, the next day, he was born and he had Down syndrome. Our life just turned upside down because are you going to go to a mission field with a young infant with Down syndrome? I mean, he could have all sorts of health problems, and, the list goes on and on and on. So for a couple of months, we didn't say anything about going to Albania. But it turned out there was nothing wrong with Joel. He was a healthy boy, except he has one more chromosome than we do. And then we began to kind of come out of this darkness and wonder, well, what was all that happening? It was so clear to us that God was calling us to Albania, and then, he was born. And I remember William McDonald telling us, they called him up. He says, Brother George, I really don't know what to tell you, except this. Don't doubt in the darkness what God showed you in the light. Well, that was all we needed. God has showed us in the light. It was his will for us to go to Albania. Dark moments can happen in the Christian life, even when you're on the mission field. And so you better be totally convinced it's God's will to go over there. Maybe that was a test from God. I don't know. But we took him, and he was just a few months old when we went over. And he's been just a tremendous blessing over the years to the work of the Lord, whether it be in Albania or North Korea. So, these decisions aren't particularly easy to make. But we went to this country in 1993, which had been the most closed country in all the world. You think North Korea is closed. Albania was far worse. Where is Albania mentioned in the Bible? Alex, you cannot answer. You know the answer. Where in the Bible is Albania mentioned? You're all Bible scholars? Edmonds Lane Bible Chapel, right? How many years you been a Christian, brother? 2 or 3 or something? I mean, 70 years, yeah. What's in the Bible? Don't say to the ends of the world. All right. Oh, brother, that's a great offense. No. Here it is. The power of signs and wonders, and the power of the Spirit. Macedonia is Greece. Right. Macedonia is Greece. That's preach the gospel from Jerusalem and round about as far as Illyricum. Illyricum is the ancient name of Albania. There it is, folks. all went there and spoke the gospel. And it's right next to the region that's called Macedonia. That's Greece. It was pure communism, unadulterated communism. Here on this billboard that was from that time, they're praising Marx and Lenin, but you see the four men there, and one of them is Stalin and the other one's Engel. So they praise as their heroes the leaders of communism. No one could leave. This is a picture not too far from our home of the border. It goes up in the mountains. And it just wasn't, just a sign there saying, oh, you're crossing into, the Yugoslavia area. There were fences, electrified, everything else, guards. And basically, if you tried to leave, you were either shot dead or picked up, and you, along with all your close relatives, were sent to a concentration camp. It was a prison. It was a prison. But in 1993, this Iron Gate, they thought they had closed. God allowed it to come open. The communism had fallen. And I'll tell you, we walked in at that time. We answered the call of Isaiah. Who will go for us? Whom shall I send? And we said, like Priscilla and Aquila, Nancy and I said, well, we will go. And so we headed out in 1993. Was it easy? No. You go to a mission field. We had 5 children at that time, at moment. Joe was the youngest, with Down syndrome. But, as I mentioned earlier, I was a tenured university professor. And if any of you are in academics, you know what that means. I had a job for the rest of my life. I liked that job very much. I was pretty good at it, I think. But, was it hard? I kind of had to think about it for a little bit. But because of the call of Christ, the cause of Christ, world missions, I just told my boss, I said, I'm not coming back. I'm resigning. And they thought I was cuckoo and everything else. But you do these strange things because of the gospel. So we headed out, with our kids. And later on, one more was born. And the last 32 years, it's been with, a lot of successes, so to speak, for the Lord, a lot of disappointments, how things go. But for the last 32 years, I think we can say safely that a great work of God has happened in this country. Not because of us, but because God was working in hearts, and we're just his vessels over there. Souls have been saved, many assemblies planted, and praise the Lord, we also have a Christian radio station up and running. Speaking about Christian radio, this is an area not too far from our home. I think Alex has been up there. This is what it used to look like under communism. It was a radar site looking for the American planes that are coming in to attack Albania. America wasn't thinking of this, but that's what they thought. And so they had radars that pick up all this aircraft, just waiting for the coming American invasion. Of course, it never came. And what happened was we purchased this mountain. And now up there is our tower, main tower for Radio Logos. And so that's a good name, isn't it? The word. And up there, so it's called Logos Mountain. That's what we call it now. And it's a place where the gospel is preached through the radio waves 24/7. You have Christian radio stations here in the Dallas area. They're good radio stations. Yeah, they're a blessing. Yeah, some are better than others. Yeah. So if you listen to Radio Logos, it would be just a great blessing. And but as time went on, around 2013, we began to ask the Lord, well, do you want us to go somewhere else? There are other challenges, and of course there always are. And it's easy for missionaries to kind of get comfortable and, at ease and never want to leave. But, we're of the mind, let's always be advancing the kingdom of God for the Lord's sake. Is there somewhere else, another country? And the Lord had an answer. Yeah, I want you to go into North Korea, the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And you can see on the map where it's at, way over there in Asia. Of course, You hear about South Korea, a lot of Christians there. But in North Korea, there's not much at all. And it opened up. And I entered as a university professor, mathematics, not as a missionary. Now, of course, we're going there. That's our mission. But as you go in, when you fill out the paperwork, you got to think of some reason why you're there. And you can't put missionary down. So I put down, well, I'm a university professor. And so I taught there for 7 years. And Nancy, worked there as well, doing many different things, human resource type person, helping with hospitality. And Joel, of course, was very active there. I mean, it was a blessing. The place was called Pyongyang University of Science and Technology. Yeah, I tell you, it's an example. Because maybe you're here today and you're a professional. You're highly educated. I mean, I have a PhD in mathematics. I know what that is. Not easy to think about giving that up for the Lord, because you worked all these years, you obtain your degree, and then you work for years to, make a career and, do good things in your career. I understand perfectly where you're at. But listen, Uncle George here. You do crazy things for the sake of the gospel. The Lord Jesus gave everything for us. And it's a little thing for you to put your career at the foot of the cross and just tell the Lord, here it is. Do with it as you wish. I had to do it. I don't say it was easy. I struggled, kind of like Jacob with the Lord, there as he was going back to Canaan. But you do it. And it's the best thing you can do. Years later, here I was, going to use the same credentials, once again, to get into a closed country. I mean, that's a blessing. If you have a professional, skills, degrees, and you just give it all to the Lord, because He'll direct you into just a fantastic path. And you don't know where you're going to end up in life. And we never dreamed that we'd end up in Albania, let alone North Korea. That's what God did. So I just give everything you have to the Lord. Brutality, the brutal reality is that the DPRK is an oppressive, communistic country. It's similar to how communistic Albania used to be. It's a police state. There's no personal liberties. There's fear in the parts of people. If you say the wrong thing, you criticize the government even a little bit. The spies, the $1.50 spies, will hear you. These are people that are paid to be spies. They're in your neighborhood, in your apartment building, and they're paid a little bit of money every month by the government to listen to your conversations that you have, even with your own family, with your neighbors. And if they see you and hear you complaining about the bread, that you had to wait in line and there was no bread that day, you get reported. They'll get $1.50 for it. You're deported off to the concentration. Would you like that kind of environment? That's what you're walking into in North Korea. The hammer and the sickle. Amazing that some people in America want this to come into here. Communism. Bad idea. They don't know what they're talking about. Under these kind of regimes, it's brutal. No light of the gospel in North Korea. Of course, that's where we go. Go to all the nations. Preach the gospel to every creature. Well, the dear North Koreans need the Lord. And when the door swung open for us to go, and we go through it as Priscilla and Aquila. Gotta remember, these people are not our enemies. When's the last time you heard something nice about North Korea in the news? Tell me. Raise your hand. But these people are delightful people. And you love them. They're not our enemies. They're souls for whom Christ is God. Always remember that. Souls for whom Christ is God. Now, I'll tell you, you have unique opportunities to speak to students, DPRK professors, and other lost souls when you're there. God just opens up doors of opportunity. Here's my students huddled around me. I'm explaining some, I forget what it was, some deep mathematical formulas to them, and they're all huddled around me, but they're my friends. And then we're in the cafeteria, and then we'll stop and we'll eat, and we'll just talk about other things, and they'll ask questions, about Christianity and things like that. Wonderful. Here's Nancy with a DPRK young lady who's working in the coffee shop with her, and they've had wonderful conversations. So these small, it's not like when they're preaching, but these small opportunities you take advantage of to bring the light of the gospel. For my classes, I teach against evolution. It's very easy with mathematics to do that. To create doubt. They're all taught evolution, all that. Maybe there is a God. Wow. This is our goal, to work with people like this. But unfortunately, in 2020, something changed. Do you know what that was? COVID. And it's one of these things that you just, I'm not the Lord. I'm not God. It's one of those things, I don't do this very much, but I just said, why, Lord? Why did you allow this to happen? Because we had to leave. We couldn't return back into North Korea. They closed the country, and it's like, why? We were just like this getting started there, making headway, and boom, the door shut. It was shut. You couldn't even think about going back. But we know this verse is still true today, and praise the Lord for it. We know that all things work together for good to those who love God. And maybe in eternity, I'll figure out the answer to this. Maybe I don't need to know the answer, but I just have to trust God that He knows what He's doing. And we've been, of course, we had to return back to Albania, not the U.S., but we went back to Albania. And we've been busy there doing all sorts of things. And wherever you're at, the old expression, be there. Don't be pining away, thinking, I wish I was back, wherever. Forget that. Just put that on the altar and just say, I'm here, Lord, now. I want to work. There's always plenty of work to do wherever you're at. Isn't that a true statement? We're not sitting around doing nothing. Yearning for the good old days. No, you just put your hand to the plow and go out. There's always plenty to do in the local assembly. The needs are endless, So we try to, preach and edify the Christians, and we even bring in strange preachers. Who's this guy here? Oh, it's Alex. Yeah, we have invited him over from time to time, and we love the ministry. Edifying the Christians and talking about leadership. These things are really positive because all the Christians there are first generation Christians. A lot of you here are second, third, fourth generation Christians. First generation Christians need a lot of work. And so we try to invest our lives into them. Nancy has been, I can't keep up with her. She is very active in weekly women's Bible studies, hospitality, children's work. Now she's thinking of going to prison, not as a convict, but a new prison has started for women, females. And so she's planning on into that when we return. Here's Nancy with some of her ladies that she has in the women's study. She'll be very active. And of course, Joel, he's become a little deacon in the assembly. Not a little deacon, but he's very active in doing his job, doing practical things in the assembly. So Joel has grown a lot in his spiritual walk with the Lord. I think I'm really pleased with that. And of course, married couple meetings we have on a regular basis. And what we do is we pick out, we go to different homes, and every, the host and hostess, they're responsible for picking out a couple in the Bible. And then we study that couple, picking out the good things they did, the bad things, like Lot and his wife. That's a wonderful couple to study. Or we could talk about Priscilla and Aquila, things like that. And I've been very edifying for the married couples. But we've also had a dramatic expansion of radio logos since the time of COVID. And we've gone from 3 frequencies, which means 3 antenna towers, to 7 frequencies, 7 and 10 hours. So we've more than doubled. And we now cover, you can see the map there of Albania, and then you see Macedonia, right? The yellow part, that was the ancient Macedonia. And now there's a country called North Macedonia, which is Slavic people for the most part. But anyhow, our coverage area, you can see that there was a huge chunk of Albania, and it goes into North Macedonia. You know, just because the border's there and can't stop the signal from going there. So yeah, we have a fairly large network that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, covering a good chunk of Albania and into North Macedonia. Northern Albania, which is up in this area, I'll just be frank, they're in desperate need of gospel. Once the Ottoman Empire came in 500 years ago, most people there just bowed the knee to the Allah, the moon god, and became Muslims. And I mean, there's very few churches, very few Christians in this. They're desperate in need of gospel. And you got a heart for God, you got to pay attention to this desperate need for work. And then North Macedonia, which is this area here, it's a combination of Orthodox people, Slavic people, and Muslims, which are primarily Albanians. Because when they redrew the borders after World War I, you know, there's that part should have been part of Albania, but they drew it under the old Yugoslavia. It's all messed up. But that country has very few churches, very few real Christians. Again, I use the word desperate twice because that's the reality. That's the reality. I'll tell you, many doors open churches. Here today, when you're thinking about world missions, I'll tell you, there's opportunities everywhere. You just need to have a heart to tell the Lord, show me your will, show me where to go. Because the harvest is plentiful. But, as I said, the workers. Therefore, the question today, the Lord cries out, whom shall I send? Going back to that famous verse in Isaiah. He's looking for people who are willing and ready to forsake all in order to bring the gospel to those who've never heard. A lot of places like that in the world. I just named 2. I can think many others too. I'm sure you can too. But he's looking today in this room. Is there an individual? Is there a Priscilla McClellan that's ready and willing to forsake all and go to a place that desperately needs the gospel? Are you willing to say today, here am I, here we are, send me, send us? Are you willing to say? I've often heard people say this to me, but Brother George, I get nervous. You know what I mean? They get nervous hearing preaching like this. They're starting to sweat. And at the end of the day, but you know, Brother George, I'm not called. You ever hear that? I hear it all the time. I'll tell them to do this. Oh, you say you're not called. Is that really what you just told me? Well, then, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go stand by the gates of hell. I don't know whether you can do that or not, but certainly in your heart you can. Go down to the gates of hell and hear the damned entreat you to go to their father's house and bid their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, their fathers, and their servants not to come here to hell. Go down there and stand by the gates of hell. Listen to these entreaties from the damned. And then, brother, look into the face of Christ and tell him that you're not called. Look at him straight in the eye and say, I know what you said. Go on the way and preach the gospel. But I'm not willing to go to these relatives, these houses, these countries that are void of the gospel. I'm not willing. Is this New Testament Christianity? This New Testament Christianity? What do you think? No, I find somebody agree with me. No, this is not New Testament Christianity. Is obeying the Lord when He says, "Go and make disciples of all nations. Go and preach the gospel to every creature." Go. And we make up all sorts of excuses. I could have. My life. You probably can too. But He's not looking for disciples like that. He's looking for New Testament Christianity. He's looking for New Testament disciples. Go to all. What do you say? But the USA needs evangelized. Well, everywhere needs evangelized. And I would say, yeah, you're probably right. You know, there's probably a lot of pagans in this country. But thankfully, you come down, what's the name of this road? Edmonds Lane. Yeah, that's it. I'll get it straight one day. You come down this road and there's 10 churches down here. That's what you told me this morning. I counted some. I was counting them, and then she told me the final answer. There's 10. But you know, there are a lot of opportunities for people here to hear the gospel. There's Bible preaching churches. There are a lot of churches that are not Bible. But there are a lot of Bible preaching churches. The one I saw all appear to be the Bible preaching churches. There's Christian bookstores. You have Christian bookstores in Dallas? In this area? Yes? You don't know. You don't read. Okay. Yeah, whatever. All right. I'm picking on you today. I'll buy you coffee afterwards. Well, it's terrible when I taught mathematics. The poor students in the front row, I would brutalize them all the time, you know. Anyhow, Christian bookstores you got? Yeah. Christian radios? Yeah, I was listening to it this morning. There's millions of Christians. Maybe there should be more. But there are a lot of people, even in Connecticut. But the rest of the world, let's just be honest. Do they have these opportunities? We went to Albania. There was nothing there. We started from zero. North Korea, there's nothing. The rest of the world, in general, there's few. I mean, there's some places that are doing well, but in general, I just start naming them off, you know, in a row. Few, if any, churches. Bible preaching churches. Few, if any, Christian books. Few, if any, Christian radios. Few, and maybe some places, zero Christians. That's the rest of it. And you're worried about America. Somebody once said this: 10 men are carrying a log. 9 of them are on the light end. You have 9 people there. And 1 at the heavy end. And you want to help. Which end should you lift up? The answer is? Oh, yeah. The answer is what? Which side? Left or right? Right side. Have you considered that? As you think about the call of Jesus? You're so worried about America that you forgot about the rest of the world? Us in Albania, I'm telling you, you know, I'm telling you these places desperately. I want to go there. But I'm only one person, we're only one family, one couple. I mean, I can't be in many places at the same time. The harvest is plentiful, brothers and sisters, workers of you. I think my time has run out, but I'll tell you, let's just bow our heads in prayer for a moment of silence. And for those of you who have been touched by the word, I want you to say this. Lord, I'm willing to go into all. That's what God is searching for, a willing heart. And Lord, I give you my heart, my fears, and my future. And I know that you will show me your good time, your will, and it will be a perfect time. As we just have a moment of silence, I want you who are serious just to pray this prayer. It's a prayer that Nancy and I prayed in 1984, and look where he took us. We didn't know where this roller coaster ride would take us, but we ended up in Albania, in North Korea. You pray this prayer, I'm sure God will just direct you to fantastic places. Let's just pray. We'll have a moment of silence with you bring your heart. Lord, I thank you so much for this time here at Edmonds Lane Bible Chapel. It's been a blessing for Nancy and Joel and I to come. We appreciate the invitation. Right. And thank you for all the believers here. It just seems like this is an active assembly with good spirit. And I pray you would take these attempts of me trying to bring forth your word, bring it into the hearts of people. May there be a dear soul here, a dear couple, dear family. We'll just be lifting up their hand to you saying, here we are. Jesus. God bless you. Thank you for inviting us. You would not want to be going around a whole lot saying hallelujah, the sign saying Jesus saves. You'll be escorted out the next day. So we had to be a little bit more discreet. Now, Albania, it's no problem, but North Korea, you try to be a little bit more discreet about things and doing things more privately. If I handed a person a Bible, they'd be so terrified because they know that $1.50 spy is around, and they would not accept it. I'd be reported